Okay, so I have the car connection device installed in the car. So now we'll look at what all this thing does. Before you can get to any of this, you need to register uh, for the service. And your instructions have all that. You can also get the instructions from Straight Talk once you activate it. But basically what you do is you activate the device. Once it's active with Straight Talk, you go to another website to register yourself and your vehicle data. Then you can download this app and start using it. Now, in addition to this app, they have a website where you can get to the same exact data, so you don't need to have a smartphone to use this thing, though the app does come in handy. And the way to get to this app from your respective app store, this is available for both Android and iPhone, is by searching for Audiovox Car Connection. That's the name of the app. So this is not a Straight Talk app. This app is provided by Audiovox, and there's a couple of other companies involved with this thing. But anyway, as far as the data that this gets, there's a lot of data that it gathers, and I've only had this installed for a couple of days, and I'm pretty impressed with all of the data that this gathers. So for starters, this is the main dashboard on the app. This will log every trip you make on the car. So every time you get in the car and drive it somewhere, it gets logged here. And what this thing does is it logs your starting and ending location. It maps it on it looks like Google Maps, and then it tells you the mileage. Now, what's interesting about this and what's cool about this is that this phone with this app does not have to be in the car to log this stuff. So everything is coming from this device, from the cell phone connection. Everything is being transmitted from the car to the service. So again, this phone, my phone that has the app installed, does not need to be in the car to log all this data. So for example, it gets all the, for every trip, it logs the mileage, and from there it calculates your MPG and a few other things. Now, another cool feature about this is that it also logs certain alerts and warnings. For example, if you go to this screen here and then you go to warnings, it gives you what that warning is. So in this case, it says excessive acceleration. So you can get a pretty good idea of what the person that's driving the car is doing, if they're speeding, if they're driving like maniacs. This does a pretty good job of detecting that. And all of that is coming from the device connected to the car diagnostics. So I think this device is perfect for a teen driver. You can get pretty much all everywhere they went, and get a good idea of how they're driving. Now, in addition to keeping track of the trips and the mileage and all that, one of the features that I like on this is all the car diagnostics that this has, and this is the vehicle health, and this monitors all sorts of things, which I was quite surprised that it actually does. So for example, you have maintenance reminders, and based on your make and model, it can determine what those maintenance intervals are. So like oil changes, tire rotations, all that kind of stuff. This thing can send you alerts on when that needs to be done. The next thing is it tells you all about recalls. It gives you details on when the recall was issued, what the component is, what the description is, what the consequences are, and what the remedy is. So I think that's another really cool feature, because typically you get these recalls by mail, but if you have a used car, you may or may not get them. This thing tells you all about recalls on your particular car. And then the next thing is this vehicle alerts. And this is a really neat thing that I've found with this service, because you wouldn't be able to get to this data otherwise without taking your car to a mechanic or buying a an OBD2 port reader and then looking up this information. But what this does is when you get a check engine light, this can tell you exactly what the problem is and how many times it's happened. So what I did was I disconnected a sensor to trigger a check engine light on purpose so I could see what this does exactly. And I was quite surprised that it actually detected this. So what it says is, it says last occurrence, when it happened. It tells you what part of the car issued the check engine light. In this case, it says intake system. And it tells you the exact description of that error. So in this case, it says manifold absolute pressure, barometric pressure, circuit high input. Now, I'm not a mechanic. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm very impressed that this actually was able to get to that. Next, on the car health, you have this fuel economy. And this is very cool on some of the older cars, like the early 2000 cars. Like if you have a 2002, 2003, and is compatible with the device, then you can get to this MPG stuff, which you wouldn't be able to get to otherwise. So my car does not have that MPG calculator like a lot of the new cars do. So this thing actually, in conjunction with the GPS capabilities of the device, and the diagnostics that it's reading from your car's computer, it can actually calculate that for you. So based on what I know about the car, this is more or less this pretty accurate for as little as I've driven it. So you can get your fuel economy for the last 30 days. Another cool thing is that you can put the current price of gas into the app, and it'll calculate and tell you what that trip costs you. And then lastly on here is the battery voltage. So that also monitors your battery's health. So if you had a bad battery, this will easily detect that and alert you to it. Then the next set of features, which I think is probably going to be important to a lot of people that want to use this to monitor their teen drivers, or maybe if you want to see what your wife or husband is doing. I know this is kind of big brother-ish, but this app does an excellent job of that. So it has this vehicle location, and what this does is this can basically locate the vehicle anywhere, so long as there's a satellite signal and the device is plugged into the car, and the car has power. So what that means is that the car doesn't need to be running. You don't need to have the keys in it. So long as the batteries is in good health, this can detect the location of the car at any time. So if the car is out and about, if your teenage driver is driving, you can easily come on here to this app and see exactly where they're going. So in addition to it logging the trips, it also logs the location in real time. So you can see them on the map anytime, anywhere. Now, in addition to this, which I don't have set up, but you can also do, is you can set up safety zones. So what that means, and you have to set the safety zones up online, and I don't have any set up, so there's nothing to kind of show on that. But basically, once you have those set up, you can come here to the zones. And what the safety zones are is that essentially you can create like a circle around your city or town or whatever, or a very specific location. So say you had a circle around here, this area. Anytime that car leaves that area, this thing can alert you to that. So it can either send you an email or a text message anytime the car leaves your designated so-called safety zones. So that's another really cool tool to keep track on your teen driver or whomever. Again, it's a lot of big brother kind of stuff, but I think this information is really cool and can be valuable, to see if your car's stolen or see what your teenage person is doing. Now the last thing I'll talk about is kind of one of the items that they have on the box here, and that's the text blocking and phone restrictions. I wasn't too impressed with it for the simple fact that it's a little bit difficult to actually use. Now, by that, it's not difficult to set up. You can set it up all online easily. But the problem with it is that the device itself can't block any phone that comes into the car. It doesn't know anything about a phone being in the car. So to get around that, you have to install an additional app called Zoom Safer. So how this works is whoever your target or whoever the person is that you want to keep from making phone calls and texting while driving, you have to get their phone and you have to install this app on it. So that means the phone needs to be either an Android phone or an iPhone for you to be able to install this. If it's not one of those two, then you can't install this app and this feature will not work for it. So basically what this does is when you have this app installed on the target phone, anytime they start driving, this thing will send a signal to this app to restrict phone calls and texts or whatever. So the reason why I don't like it is because this app can easily be uninstalled, and there's no doubt that whoever you install this on, they're going to know that this is installed, and they can easily uninstall it, hence defeating the whole system. Now the other thing is if your teen driver has friends in the car, it's not going to block their phone because they're not registered for this. It'll only block their phone. So I find it to be a little bit gimmicky. It does work. I haven't tried it myself, but it's very easy to get around, so it's not 100% foolproof. So I think that about wraps it up for the features on this thing. And I will say that I was pretty impressed with all that it can log. I think all the data that it provides is well worth the $10 a month. You can get a lot of data from this that you wouldn't get otherwise, and I think it is an excellent tool to monitor your teen drivers.